is 6:04 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody and please silence your mobile devices. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Dale Bleditz if he would lead us in invocation.
Let us pray. Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you again for another day, Lord, that you have given us. And Lord, we just thank you for everything you do for each and every one of us, Lord, especially providing for us and seeing through us through this cold, Lord. It's a hard time for everybody, but Lord, we know you're taking care of us all, Lord. I pray tonight for this meeting. I pray for each individual here tonight that we make right and just decisions for our county. For we ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Masters, will you do that for the
Pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation. That's the strong.
Board members, if you would look at the ethics and awareness and conflict of interest statement. If any of you have a conflict of interest, please let it be known at this time. If no one has any conflict, we'll move on to additions or changes to the agenda. We have any?
Chairman, I'd like to make a couple of additions, motion to add a couple of additions to our agenda this evening. Item 11D, under the items for discussion, to rescind the winter weather state of emergency. And item 11E, the transportation facility matching study.
Okay, at this time, with additions to the agenda, I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Dale. Need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Lee. All in favor? Simon. Okay, the next thing on the list is approval of the minutes. The first one we'll look at will be January 9, 2025, regular session minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dale. All in favor? The closed session minutes on January 9th, 2025. Do I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
Thank you, Lee. Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you, Hardy. All in favor? Do we have anybody with public comment tonight that wishes to speak to the board? We have no public comment. We will now move on to reports and presentations. Ms. Sheila. She will present transportation feasibility study and facility grant.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
I did a presentation just to kind of familiarize some of those who may not know our background a little bit, where we came from, where we'd like to head. So with that being said, if you'll flip to the next slide. Transportation was founded in 1976. We started by funding from WAMI. Us and the senior center got started at the same time. Our facility, y'all know what this building is in Ledger on Duncan Loop. That was our first facility up here in the top. Maintenance for Mitchell County was actually here in these garages. But Pauline Jenkins was the first director of transportation and Hazel Yelton was the first director of the senior center. And these two ladies actually went door to door, poplar, pigeon roofs, spruce pine. They went door to door telling people that there was a new senior center and there was transportation to get them there. They even spoke at the churches in the communities, you know, letting people know what WAMI was bringing to the county. Next slide. Our second location was the tomato house down here. I don't have any idea when we went there, but anyway, we became a county department in 1983. We went from just transporting the senior citizens to the senior center, to transporting human service. When I came to transportation in 1991, been here just a little while, We were just mainly human service. We went to Mountain Opportunity, we went to the daycares and to the senior center. So we were just doing human service and within our county. Next slide. Then disaster, I went on to the disaster strike. So this is headlines of 2024, 1998. This is 1998, you know that by our governor there, I'm sure. So next slide. This was our office down here at the Tomato House. This was the flood line in that flood. So we received 4.5 feet during that flood. We lost everything in our office at that time. And we lost one vehicle. But before that flood, Colleen was already in discussion with NCDOT concerning us in the building. Once our office was destroyed, this effort was expedited. So we were in a building and over here, December 98, we were in a new building, and believe it or not, at that time, we were the envy of the Western North Carolina region. We had 3 indoor bays and we had a wash bay, and we thought we were something. Next slide. This was our conference room then. This was a shot with our security camera back this last year. So now we've had to move an office into our conference room. We no longer have room for our tab meetings. We have to come over here. And next slide. This was our training back in 1998. We had enough to get around one table. Next slide. This is our training now. We were doing it out in the garage. If it was winter time, this heater here makes a whole lot of noise, so it was really hard to hear. In the summertime, Harley's been over there, back in this, when we had like 80-degree temperatures and we had fans going and the fan from that. It's very hard to do training because you couldn't hear. It was echoing in our garage, but this is where we had our Christmas parties. This is where we had our staff meetings. We done a lot in our garage. Next slide. I've always called this a little engine that could, and we have transitioned from back, like I said, in 91, when I started, we were just doing human service. Now you can be proud that we take people, nobody in Mitchell County needs to worry. If they can get to a doctor's appointment, if they can get groceries, pay bills. We go to Duke Baptist, Asheville twice a day, morning and evening, mostly Hickory, Eastern Tennessee, and we go to Charlotte and Asheville airports. As you know, our county has no taxis, Ubers, or Lyfts. We are those. We transport. We are not perfect, but we are the little engine that could. We give 100%. We do our best. This is 2024. Once again, when disaster struck, we were in conversation with NCDOT, IMD concerning the need for a new building. We have outgrown our space. We've outgrown, as you all probably tried to find the parking space tonight when the county admin shut down. We take up a big footprint as far as a parking lot, and we still have some vehicles up at the courthouse. But we had outgrown our whole space, parking, conference room, training, everything. Next slide. This is some of the pictures from this flood, from the 2024. We lost 6 vehicles, as I'm sure y'all know. I thought I put one in here with the water level in our office, but it was up right at the edge of this little brown baseboard in my office. That's my office. We had to shovel mud in the garage. As you can see, it was up on the tires. But we sustained quite a bit of damage in 2024. Next slide. Our fleet, we've grown from a fleet of 7 vehicles in 1991 to a fleet of 15. We've been granted an expansion, so coming soon we'll have a fleet of 16. And that expansion, when they grant you an expansion, that's just not, you have to prove that you need that expansion. We do what's called a vehicle utilization twice a year. And they look at how many are on our vehicles, where all we are at during the day. Could we have, as I call it, handed off a vehicle, used it twice a day. They look at all that information before IMD will say they need an expansion. So
That's a good question. Real quick while you're on this.
sure.
Does your timeline numbers contribute to that fleet expansion at all? Like your, the numbers from the timeline people?
No, we count those units, yes, on the fine line. That does go into all of our op stats and our funding consideration and everything like that. But as far as the vehicle utilization, they're not really looking at numbers. They're looking at where you were at during the day, how many vehicles you needed to meet your need that day. And then they track all of our, if we, deny a trip, they look at that. And we try to never deny, we will ask someone to reschedule. But we do our best to never deny. Next slide. New facility, okay, what we're discussing tonight is NCDOT is asking $30,000 to conduct a feasibility study. This study would identify land and would also provide someone to write a grant and assist with the federal regulations of the build. If you do a federal building, there is a lot of federal regulations. What was one I thought of to share with you? I told it to you today, Mavis. What was it?
Your vehicles can't be parked in that floodplain.
Well,
So,
right, but, there's just a lot of federal regulations that will go along with that you have to buy America.
yeah,
You have to meet a certain percentage of the building products going into that building would have to meet the Buy America if you do federal regulations. We have already, Alan was in my office discussing something else on Friday afternoon, and we received a phone call from NCDOT. His name is Michael Stafford, excuse me. And you could hear the smile over the phone, couldn't you? He had just left a meeting with NCDOT, and they had identified federal monies that was coming into the state of North Carolina, the highway divisions. And within that, they had just a special projects that didn't have to have anything to do with the highway division. And he had said Mitchell County needs a transportation facility. And he said, could we have $5 million for Mitchell County to build a transportation facility? And they said yes. The problem with that is he has to know by tomorrow. The $30,000 would be to conduct the feasibility study, but they have set aside Mitchell County a pot of money for a facility. The county's portion for the new facility would be a 20% match. As Mavis knows, my vehicles, money for capital items, it's usually 80% federal, 10% state, 10% county. But with this one, there would be no state dollars. It would be a 20% match. Next slide. This is the regulation Mavis was talking about, and now IND, after Helene has said that you can have no vehicles, that all vehicles have to be stored out of the floodplain. So right now, if I was going through a federal compliance review, our vehicles could not be parked here at our building at all. They would have to be outsourced somewhere else. And the problem with that being is you need to lay eyes on your drivers. You need to be seeing those drivers before they get in the vehicle or after they get out of the vehicle, but you need to be put in sight and seeing your drivers every day. You need to be communicating with them every day. And if they are not on site, that can be very hard to do. But that is the new regulation that they have to be stored. And always they have to be, if you look down here, you need video cameras, locks, fencing, lighting, and silent codes for the new transit facility buildings. So, and that's my presentation. I tried to keep it short and sweet. Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot I had this one. Our needs, we need 4 offices, we need a training area with heat and air that is quiet. Conference room, these can be 2 in 1, of course, we need a driver's area. With 16 vehicles comes 16 tablets that get charged every day when the drivers come in. They have iPads that they have their drivers manifest on that keeps track of passengers and mileage and all that good stuff. Enclosed bays for the route vehicles, like this morning, you know, I put us on a 2-hour delay for today and have us on a 2-hour delay for tomorrow. Cause as Dale can probably attest, it's really hard to check oil when it's 4 degrees.
Yes.
We need a waiting area that keeps the public separate from our office area. We need a secure parking area. We probably are looking at 2 acres. 250 feet for an office and 2,500 square feet for a garage, indoor garage with a washing bay right now. I don't know if you remember that old picture of Sue washing vehicles. Back then it was kind of tight, but we have a propane washer now. And if you've ever tried to wash a car when you're looking up high and washing it, you know, it kind of comes back down on you. So the only way they were washing their vehicles now was outside. So, but we need, you know, a nice wash bay to keep, because right now our fleet, if you've seen us, we look pretty cruddy, but it's kind of hard to wash right now. But we would like to talk about a facility for the future. With this federal money, you are committing to a transit facility and it can only be used for transportation for 40 years. They are looking down the road. Regionalization, I put this in here because many times NCDOT has talked about having one transit office for multiple counties. And they've always looked at Yancey, Mitchell, Avery. Well, what are we? We're the middle county. They've also looked at McDowell, Avery, and Mitchell. And there again, we could be the transit facility for those 3 counties. They would have satellite offices, but we could be that regional office. Multimodal, we've talked about this some in looking at facilities that had been available in Spruce Pine. With microtransit, you have one vehicle and one driver that's sitting there. Someone calls in and says, I just got a call, I've got a doctor's appointment. Then you can dispatch that one vehicle out. We could also do bike and ped. We could be, if we had bike trails in Spruce Pine, Bakersville, wherever, but we could rent bikes. They could get on a bike trail. They could go get exercise, and you have the information available for pedestrians that want to know the trails in the county. But that is what is called a multimodal facility. And there was, I'm not sure about now after Helene and all that North Carolina is going through, if there's still grants available for multimodal facilities and microtransit and bike and ped. But that's something they've really pushed in the last 10 years is the microtransit and the bike and ped. And we could also have a park and ride lot, which has already been identified in the CTP, Community Transportation Plan. We have one park and ride facility right now at Estico, but they're supposed to be, like Yancey County has 3 or 4 park and ride lots. So our wants would be a covered parking area for the vans. We would keep maybe a couple inside for the drivers that have more seniority, as I said, to do their pre and post trips in the warmth or in the cool or whatever. But the drivers are responsible for doing their pre and post trip inspections. And sometimes if you're going to Duke, you're doing that pre-trip as early as 4 a.m. in the morning or sooner. So like to have a washer dryer combo, nothing great, nothing big, just a little washer dryer combo. So when a child has had an accident on a car seat cover, or drivers had somebody that's got sick and their uniform's gotten dirty during the day, like we could throw it in the washing machine and have cleaning rags. I take them home and currently wash them in my brand new washing machine, which grieves me a little bit. So, or I was, but, and we would like to have a public restroom that was separate from ours, from, admin and the drivers. So that's our needs and our wants. Any questions? I know I threw a lot at you.
How quick would it take from start to finish? How we apply for this grant until we're in the bid?
Well, the feasibility study would be at least 5 months to a year. That would be identifying land, identifying, like building, sewer, water, all of those things, but that would be the feasibility study. So, does that answer that question?
The money's available.
The
We-
money would be for the grant, it would be allocated to us.
Okay.
And the 20% match would be, and this Mavis knows how I do my claims, as you done the grading, then you submit those bills and they would send you the 80%. So your 20% would be budgeted. Make sure I'm saying this right, but you don't have,
It's a reimbursable.
yeah,
grant.
it's reimbursable, right?
So you draw on it as you use it. And you put your 20% match all along with it. In other words, you don't
Yeah,
pay it up front or at the end. Each invoice, they would pay 80 and we would pay 20.
we wouldn't get the $5 million. They keep it and we just reimburse for what we've used.
So what we would envision would be, if they do the study, they'll do site assessments, site selection, and scoping is what all three of those things. So what would happen is, let's say it takes a year, takes 7 to 10 months. What you get at the end is a good estimate that they find the property. They see if the property's attainable. If the property's attainable, then they do a scope and a budget to know how much. Typically, they go out and ask for the grant, but they know how much the budget would be for that property. So we don't really know exactly how much one would be, depending on the price of the property and everything. It could be, a low end or a high end range, you could be low to 4, maybe up to 6, but that's typically what we've seen in these other counties, but it could be all over the map. I mean, with the prices and everything, but you'd know something about a year about what your budget would look like on
Exactly.
And this is for new build, not remodel, right?
Cannot be a remodel. Federal money will not go into a remodel. And like I said, it has to be solely for transportation, like over here, this was built, Arian was 100 and some thousand for, transportation. And that was state monies. There's no federal money in our building over there. Well, I get federal money in my capital grants to do upgrades, painting. I get, federal money for paving. I've repaid once since 98. And so that I can, where's that on with that? There is federal money as far as upgrades over there. But that was built with state monies. That's why it could be included with what at that time was DSS on one end. But they wouldn't put any money into us being through the tax department again. It has to be solely transportation. Any other questions?
it. I wish everybody worked as hard as you did with your department. You do an amazing job. I mean, you put a lot of work in it and we appreciate it. It makes it real easy, so.
Well, it's not just me. I have a wonderful team
you do
and
a
we
good
all
job.
get along and work together as family. So I'm very blessed with my staff, but thank you.
My first stint in community service was in that tomato building. When I was a young lad, I got to do a little Meals on Wheels, for some bad decisions made, so me and old Sue, we went all over this county, down there, so my mom worked with Whammy,
Yeah,
before, with all that stuff, so there's plenty.
yeah, when I came in 91, we delivered the Meals on Wheels and But
what you do.
quickly became more than we could do.
They frown upon you driving 75 with no license. I was 14, I don't go over real well, but then they put me on probation and I got another ticket before I ever got my license again, so it was made some bad decisions there as a young lad. But they still let me get my license, so God will.
That's all.
That's right.
Any other questions? Any questions concerning our needs that you have? Any questions about what I've presented to you?
we're gonna go into items of discussion a little bit later with this, but if you have some more questions when we get down to that, but. You didn't tell them about the time frame that, the state's gotta know about this grant.
Well, I hope you caught the fact that I said tomorrow.
Yeah, can you call them tonight?
Uh,
Can you call them tonight?
I can.
Okay.
I actually asked him to be on call in case we had any questions that Alan or I couldn't answer, and he kindly agreed to do so.
So we're gonna get to this shortly,
Okay,
so be ready to go down the hall like a phone call.
okay, I get to come home.
I mean, you can wait till in the morning if you want to, but I just thought, since we got cell service and everything, something got bogged down tomorrow.
Good point.
Okay, we'll move on to board reports. Mr. Blevins, I will start with you.
All right, I have been to, several since we met last. Animal shelter, they continue to, plan and look for grants to cover the cost of the new animal shelter. They're in the scope area right now, looking how they want to plan and go about that. They still continue to discuss the options for the plan, and despite, make a long one short, despite all the tropical storm mess and everything that everybody's had to go through, it has been a good year for the Mitchell County Animal Rescue. Through donations, various grants, their investment accounts, and they did come out on top this year. In their, net income, so that's something that we need to be proud of for them. They've worked very hard. Also attended an EOC meeting, and right back to it, a 911 communications meeting, and learned quite a bit. I'll tell you, that was my first communication meeting, and Stephanie took me on a tour of the facility after we had our meeting. But I just want to say that the updates that they do in these meetings for everybody that's here behind the scenes, if we didn't have those folks here to help us plan and look out for upcoming things that are going on in our county, such as the weather, for example, we are very, very dedicated to have these folks working for Mitchell County and for the whole county, each town. They put a lot of effort into what they do. And the public doesn't see that a lot unless you're sitting in those meetings, but they do a lot for us. Also, on the communications meeting, they are now, to let the commissioners know, you remember Stephanie talked about the trouble with the internet, but they do have their primary, of course, is Spectrum, and their backup, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, FrontNet, I believe is what it is. FirstNet, excuse me, I'm sorry. FirstNet, thank you, Mavis. So they do have a backup in place, which is working right now. But anyway, other than that, that's the two that I have attended, three I've attended this time.
Thank you, Bones.
You do that all the time.
I do, I just start making inside. 40 years, it's hard to break hands. It's very hard. Mr. Steve Pitt.
I don't have any updates. JCPC, we didn't meet this month. Bayou meets, February, and Main Street, I think I gave you guys an update the last time I was here, so.
Mr. Lee Ellis.
I attended a chamber meeting. I think I mentioned this in the last, county commission meeting. There is a meeting planned for Thursday, and Senator Heiss is going to be at the golf course. They are working on the Mineral Gym Festival, planning stages for the Mineral Gym Festival in August. And they are also working on a 3-year strategic plan for the organization, which I think is needed. That's the only one I attended. There's a meeting, it'll be the first ABC meeting that I will attend on Thursday. And then there's a fire association tentative schedule for Thursday evening. Yeah. That's all.
And that is correct.
That's huge.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Ms.
You're
Harvey?
gonna be really busy Thursday. Out of all of my boards, the only one that is met since our last meeting is the TDA meeting, and that was today at 1 o'clock. And the majority of the conversation just circled around, the tourism event that Ms. Jones is planning. I hope each of you can, make a point to come if you want to attend, just, shoot her an email real quick so that she can get you on there, so she can be planning for food. And other than that, we're doing a little bit of planning for Tourism Week, which will be later on. I believe that's in March. So that was the gist of what our meeting consisted of today.
The only one that I've had is, I attended the foundation board meeting today. It went very well. Everything was very smooth. My understanding, the grant money will start to be going out to the businesses that applied and those that met the qualifications. So there's another boost for our business folks that were hurt by the tropical storm. And this is not a board report, but I think it's something I hope our citizens will know about. There's a disaster legal service coming to Mitchell County, and it's a free legal clinic. It'll be at the Senior Citizens Center Wednesday, January 29th, and walk-ins are welcome. So if you've had trouble with your paperwork or anything with FEMA, and you cannot afford legal service to pay for legal service, then this is a free legal service that you can attend. You can give them your information and they will help you get to, hopefully the bottom of your problems and the problem will keep reoccurring. So keep that in the back of your mind. I hope the board gets out on live stream. If you know anybody personally that's had an issue, please tell them about this. These are certified board attorneys. One of the groups will be Pisgah Legal Service. And that's all I have. We'll move on for items for discussion. Rehab of transportation / tax building. I'll ask Alan and Mavis both to speak on this.
Yes, so the last meeting, we kind of went through the finance report and was kind of talking about insurance and the need for space versus what can we do present versus future, short term versus long term with this building out here. And of course, we know parking is an issue, but we also, as you walk down our hall, you see that we got two departments crammed in, well, some days 3 departments crammed in the same EDC boardroom down here. And so what we were talking about was using the insurance money to fix up these offices out here that were flooded. And getting them back up where in the short term, they can service the needs of our citizens and have these offices back going in about 3 months. Otherwise, if I wait for Bowman to get good enough funding to fix it up to where it's public ready, because there's a lot of handicap accessible issues. There's a lot of heating, cooling. Bowman will need funding and it needs a lot of work to get it ready for citizens. So in the short term, while we're trying to migrate a lot over towards Bowman, we need some office space and that gets us fixed up. So our ask would be on the items of discussion would be for the board to allow us to move forward with the insurance work and I think FEMA's also mixing in to help with that to get those. So it won't go out of taxpayer dollars, but it gets those buildings ready for some short-term office space. And if you was to weigh that out against getting a trailer or a double wide or something fixed up, for what we're paying, we're coming out and we're getting the needs met right here. And I know the parking's things, and I know that it can be a issue about 2 years from now as to what you want to do with those buildings. That'll be another talk, but it would be be nice to get those to where y'all move forward with allowing for those to kind of go back into where I can get these folks to where they can not be on top of each other.
Ms. Mavis, would you like to add anything?
I think you covered it. I think we're good.
Okay, we'll take a motion to approve the rehabbing of transportation / tax building.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Dale. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Harley. All in favor? Majority voted. Second thing will be waterway and private property debris removal.
Yes, so, this is the items for discussion. We are moving forward with getting the Corps to do waterway and private property debris removal. So the Corps of Engineers requires us to, get them GPS coordinates of debris in the waterway. And then they do some scoping with FEMA, and then it goes to a prime contractor that the Corps of Engineers has. That prime contractor has rates, and then they bring in subcontractors. And one of our hopes with going with the Corps is that they pay our local contractors a competitive wage to do the waterway and the private property debris removal. But our first step right now, and this week we got our Survey 123 app. So you might see in the community folks with smartphones standing by the creek. And if you see that, we'll have a vest on. They might have a side-by-side if it ain't too cold, but I don't know if that'll happen. But we're gonna be doing a debris analysis we're gonna do a watershed at a time and submit those. And once we get to seeing what they like and don't like, if they say there's certain things they need in addition, then we can have that out. We're gonna scope out the first two priority projects are Cane Creek watershed and the North Toe to town of Spruce Pine watershed, because both of those threaten to flood our two towns. So those are the two, and then from there, we're just popping them out of watershed at a time. One of our goals is by mid next week to have all the groundwork done for the Cane Creek watershed. We hope maybe the weather cooperates. We could maybe even have those submitted to the Corps even this week, but I'm not going to get too optimistic with the cold. And then we'll be moving on over to North Toe. We'll be having boots on the ground. And the reason I like this idea is that when we're scoping, we've got our folks that know where our flood places are, our weaknesses. I've got USDA, I've got Gary Hyde, I've got our emergency management staff. If I can get loose from this office, I'd even got me an app ready to go out there and scope it, but we'll see. So that's what we're looking at. We would need the board's discussion if they have any questions, but that is our intent, is to move forward with the Corps of Engineers for private property debris and watershed waterway debris removal.
Any questions for Alan? If none, you'll have a motion to approve waterway and private property debris removal.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Lee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. All in favor? We'll move on to C, opioid counselor 5-year contract request.
Yeah, I'll speak to that one as well. So, we had, put in back in November/December timeframe that through the opioid program, we could get some counselors to, help with our children in the school coming through a flood. Some of those contributing factors to future addiction, they could focus in on those, and the counseling would be an option that was approved by the state. So we put in for 2 opioid counselor positions. That would be renewed year to year. And the school kind of gave us some feedback saying that, we ran these positions and we're not getting any takers because they're not ready to work on a year to year contract. These are counseling professionals. A lot of them have master's degrees. They might be relocating, so they're looking, for something a little bit more dependable. So the request was, could we give them a 5-year contract? I wanted to put that out to the pleasure of the board to discuss that. It might even be saying that the grant may not allow that, but because we have to, with the opioid funds, I think we have to do a year to year snapshot that the allocation of the funds may be a question there. With that said, I would say, that's the issue on the table is if there was a way to make it go to 5 years, would you want it to? If you wanted to go from 2 to 1, to go that route and let them know that if they have good performance, they're likely going to be renewed, and you can maybe start them on the year or something, or it might be this board says, well, we need to think on it and table it. So anyways, I was just throwing some discussion out there on this, this point here.
Any discussion, any questions concerning this round?
So the concern is basically that you can't get qualified candidates. Nobody wants to sign up for just a year without any kind of guarantees that they may not get funded.
Yep, that's what the school's telling us.
I'd have a little bit of concern about extending past what time I'm gonna be a commissioner. Personally.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I think Alan hit on a couple of points key. And first of all, let me say, I think that we realized, and this board realized when they chose to appropriate this money for this service, that there is a desperate need for a clinical licensed social worker, not just in Mitchell County, but everywhere. The problem may be that we may not be able to go into a contract negotiation. We're having an opioid workshop along with finance workshop at the end of the month. I think this is a question that Christie, since she's worked on this, needs to answer. I think in the meantime, when we get some more information, or even prior to, we sit down with the superintendent of schools and his leadership team and look at this. Also talk to Mason Gardner. He's our director of the Board of Health. He is currently working on a grant and is hoping that he can get a grant to give additional money for this project. So under the circumstances and us not knowing exactly if we can do this legally, I'm going to recommend to the board that we table this until after we have our opioid meeting in March. Let Christie give us some follow-up on this. That would be my recommendation to the board. Now, if anybody wants to put that in a motion, that's fine. If not, we'll redirect.
So the grant that Mason is looking for, he would be able to just allocate that money from the Toe River Health to the school system directly.
Or I'm not sure about that. I don't think that if he's able to get that grant, that it could be run into the opioid money. But I'm not certainly sure what I'm saying. But in saying that, if he could get that grant, then the opioid money that we have available could fund one position. And the Toe River Health District money could fund the second position. So you would have two. You would have two, but we would just be paying for one. So, there's a lot of inner workings behind the scenes right now with that. I talked to him today. He had inquired about getting someone to write the grant. It was an excessive amount of money. He's going to go a different direction. Hopefully he'll know something definite at the next Board of Health meeting in mid-February.
How long is that grant good for?
I don't know. Oh,
I know that during COVID, the state was very hesitant to put any personnel on, staff with grant money, because once you stop it, you can't really start it and stop it. So I just didn't know what that time frame looked like.
but I think it's my personal opinion. I think it's a definite need
And
for our kids.
I don't disagree with that. I just, the length of 5 years concerns me just a little bit to commit that far.
And we're going to have a lot of players in the game with that. I'm sure Ms. Glenda will give us information at that. Christie will give us information on her end. Is probably going to be okay, here's the money factor. Okay, here's how much money you're gonna have. And then there may be, a constraint with us doing a 5-year contract. Seem like, Glenda, do you help me with this? If an agency, excuse me, applies and the state approves that we can use the opioid money for this certain thing, they've got to come back every year and do a follow-up plan or resubmit.
I think, Jeff, that is determined by the county itself
Okay,
as far as the frequency. But again, I think we would revert back to Christie, that's talked to NCACC and stuff to better understand what the guidelines are.
There's a lot of reporting guidelines, Jeff. They have to do a quarterly report and then they have to do an annual report. But again, every year at budget time, you're gonna have to budget that money for the projects you're gonna do that year. If, and I think I'm right on this I can research it, but if you were to commit to a 5-year, one position, then that's gonna restrict that money at that time. In other words, it's just like any other type of allocation. You do it's gonna restrict that money, whatever it may be, for $500,000 or whatever for 5 years. Then that year when you do that budget, you're gonna restrict that amount of money. You're gonna draw down on it every year. If they meet their benchmarks and their progress reports. But when you enter into any type of agreement or contract, that's gonna restrict that money.
Mr. Chairman, subject to the specifics of the opioid regulations, because they do have specific state regulations. The county could enter into a multi-year agreement, and usually in those agreements, you put that they are subject to appropriations by the governing body. So if there simply aren't funds allocated, or if it's not reauthorized, that is an exception to whatever that commitment for that term is. So it's, although it's for example, a 5-year commitment for the term, there's still if the money is not allocated for this position, that position would no longer exist. But it does signal to whomever takes the job that the present intention is whatever that term is. It ultimately reserves the appropriation authority either to this board or to however the state says these funds are to be spent. But unless there's something specific to the opioid settlement agreement, you can do a multi-year agreement if you choose so.
thank you.
I see Alan back there. Alan, was the job posted?
Yes.
Did you have any applicants at all in the?
Seven.
But it was all concerning this.
Well, let me ask you this question. You're a young person, you just got your master's degree and they ask you to move somewhere for 6 months. Would you move your family and buy a new home there? You business owners, would you do that with your employees? I don't think so. And that's the problem we're having. And I'm not saying that in a mean way. I'm just saying that's the way it is. And I totally understand that there are regulations with what you have to follow. I totally understand that. And to follow the guidelines of what it is. And, but I'm here to represent our kids. And that position of a licensed clinical social worker can do the counseling right there on the spot. We don't have to refer to a mental health agency that has a different person each week because they can't keep employees, whatever, for moving and moving up. And I'm just looking for stability and something, and that's why we asked for 5 years because, and like I just asked you, would you move somewhere for 6 months, not knowing if you were going to have a job at the end of that time? I wouldn't. And, that's where we're coming from. And we understand that you have to follow what you have to follow but we're just trying to get something to where the kids, we had several situations happen since the flood that we've had to go to outside agencies and it takes time to get there. If we had someone in the school system that the kids know, that they trust, you know, that, these situations may have not escalated to the point that they did. And, that's where we're coming from. But we do appreciate everything y'all have done to us, you've done a lot, and we'll help y'all any way we can.
Well, and I totally agree with, you know, what Alan said, and I think everybody sitting here tonight, you know, has a heart and a concern for our community and our children. And I don't think there's any question about that. I wanna be a part of the problem with a solution, if we can be. And, you know, we can say whatever we want to, guys, this has been one hell of a year. Our kids have lost their education. They've lost their activities. They've lost their sporting events. We've gone from a flood that we could do nothing about. Now we go to winter weather. And we got two 14-year-old girls just turned 14. They go to high school next year. My wife and I are not equipped teachers. We are not equipped to teach them and help them with what they need to learn at home in order to be ready to succeed. And there are many just like us out there. You know, there's kids that are struggling. They're struggling with schoolwork. They're, you know, you're being bullied. You're cold at home. You don't have enough food at home. And all that wears on a young person's mental stability every day. So in saying that, Alan, I know that there's a need, a huge need. You know, I've seen it personally. You've seen it personally. You've dealt with it over the years, being in the school system. I've seen it working with young people through athletics. And the program is set up to hopefully stop them from going to the next level, them being able to quit and not going to smoking, to drinking, to drugs, to meth, and getting into situations that they really don't want to get into, because I've been to several of these meetings along with Linda. Heard a lot of recovering addicts speak. None of those people expected to turn out to be a drug addict or have a problem. And those folks have gone through hell, and they're still trying to remain drug free. So we need to take this opportunity, not only just with the school system, but with our recovering addicts, to make sure we've got programs in place to assist them also. And I know I've gotten us off track, and I'm sorry, Chairman shouldn't do that, but you know, sometimes something gets on your heart and you just need to say it. So how would this board like to handle this tonight?
Well, Jeff, I'm very passionate about this subject because I should have been a statistic. You know, I grew up in a home that was completely exposed to drug activity my entire life. And had it not been for early intervention and the teachers that cared enough at Mitchell High School to have those conversations with me, it could be a completely different story. So for me personally, I respect what Lee's saying, is like, I don't want to subject future boards to decisions that I make, but I would be comfortable, and I put this in the form of a motion, to fund the opioid counselor for at least 2 years. So that would be through the end of my term as a commissioner. And then also revisit that come budget time in the spring. So my motion is to fund the opioid counselor for at least 2 years at this time. Because I don't see us being able to really wait 6 months to make those decisions for our kids.
Smeister just put a motion, do I have a second?
It's a need. I see it every day with some of our kids. So
Is that one council?
That's what I was about to say, one or two. one counselor or two, because we had two on the region.
The original was two, so that would have, revised my motion to reflect two.
I'll second. Mr. Blevins seconded. All in favor? No, okay. Supply two counselors for 2 years. And revisit at budget time. Is that correct, Ms. Masters?
That's correct.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Next item on the list is, rescind winter weather state of emergency. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Steve. Do I have a second?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. All in favor? And the next item on the list, and you got your speed dial on, honey? E, transportation facility match and study.
I make a motion, we fund 30,000 to do the study.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, all in favor? It carries.
We need anything for the 80-20 on that too? To
Yeah.
move forward
Keep it
with the
going.
80-20. 31 been now accept to allow Sheila to
Let me
accept.
revise my previous motion. I make a motion that we fund the 30,000 to do the initial study, and that we commit to the 80-20 match, knowing that we have a $5 million grant in the wings moving forward.
Hey,
Did I
Steve,
say that right? Is that everything? I think.
That means Sheila's.
Steve rescinded his first motion, made a new motion.
Mr. Chairman, it would be appropriate to leave that first motion in your minutes and vote on the second motion as well. That will,
Okay,
it'll be a belt and suspenders approach.
thank you, sir. We got a motion from Steve. Do I have a second?
I'll still second it.
Mr. Dale seconds. All in favor? All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Mavis,
Thank you.
you're up.
Right. I'm not gonna stand up because I'm
You
a
don't
little,
feel.
I'm a little creepy and I'm afraid I'll start coughing. The only thing I really wanted to update you on is we did get another month of sales tax. Of course, that comes in the middle of the month. We graduated from being on the bottom till we are second from the bottom now. But you can tell, and we'll talk about this more when we do our budget little lesson that we're gonna do. But I mean, the first 5 months, it's a nosedive. So we're in the negative right at 12% right now, which equates to about $230,000 from the first 5 months of last year to the 5 months of this year. But there are a lot of counties, unfortunately, in Western North Carolina, just like us, so.
What's that for November? So
It's
we,
for 5 months, July through November.
so we went from 24% to 12%.
Yeah.
Well, that Jim would cut it in half. It's still not good, but it should have been a lot worse. Anything else, Ms. Mavis?
That's all I have tonight, thank you.
Okay. County managers report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just be brief as well. We're doing a lot of, still on the debris side, still trying to provide oversight on, debris removal and making sure our folks are safe out on the roads with the proper flagging. We've got boots on the ground with the county that looks at that, but I always say if you see somebody that, if you don't see the flagging going on correctly, they're required by law to do so. Let me know and I will turn that in, and we've want to make sure that our folks are safe on debris removal. They have given us debris schedules, and they have brought some more trucks in. We're still watching that right of way debris removal. As we move into the world of debris removal, a little more about private property and private road debris removal. Private property debris removal is coming in the future, and basically what that is if you supply a right of entry form and a hold harmless form, that means if someone comes on your property and damages something in the process of getting your debris, not by major negligence, then that hold harmless would protect that contractor. But they will come up onto your property and get debris that was blocking your roads, fire access, and in your yard, which is putting an undue load on on your property and risk. So that is coming. We are, like I said, we went ahead and scoped on that. We're working on, right of entry. This week, finance and I are gonna be, looking at some of the RFPs to, analyze the best fit for that. Also doing a lot of, board meetings, and financial, projections with FEMA. We got a lot going on with that. Our finance office has been doing a heavy lift on the FEMA end of it. Private roads and bridges, specifically private bridges. We sent out last week to the, political folks that be, you know, I always say our Fed end and our state end. The, request to, remove the, no rise study in line with when the H&H study is removed. So the H&H is the engineering of the bridge. So if the bridge does not require an engineering study, and that's typically in the case of a repair of a bridge. So maybe the bridge, took some damage but needs to be repaired, and you're taking it and putting it back to the way it was. We're asking that they waive, since they're waiving the engineering study in those cases, they should also waive the no rise study because that bridge was there beforehand and it's being repaired. I'm hearing from the political side that that might come in March. You know, it is a sad thing that, you know, folks will be going through the dead of the winter without a bridge, but maybe in March we'll have something break loose on our regulatory navigation. So as I'm working in this job right here, a lot of what I'm doing is trying to get, temporary waivers of regulations due to the storm and asking for mercy from our regulatory agencies to say, hey, come on, give us a little slack and let us move these projects. And the neighboring counties are in basically the same position. You know, our hands are tied because the regulations take months. So it's like we could say, yes, we're going to fix your bridge, but we're waiting for a no rise study, which is 3 to 6 months sometimes, depending on the load of engineers. The state's looking at saying that they might try to dedicate a team of engineers to rush the no rise studies out a little quicker. But you know, the scope of the damage on private bridges is pretty large in the western part of the state. So a lot of stuff is being talked about, a lot of stuff's being worked on. We're optimistic. And we're definitely very appreciative of the county and all the help that we have got, but we're really trying to push the regulatory side to give us some temporary waivers during this storm. And also just always want to say there's a lot of folks out there that are working hard and you know, they're volunteering, they're helping their neighbors. This cold time has been very stressful. And as Dale said, you know, just a shout out to those working behind the scenes in our emergency operations, our fire departments that are bringing warmth to folks. If someone's cold, we have a setup where they can call 911. And a lot of times our folks like the shelter in place. We can bring them out some heating supplies if they want to do that. Or we can escort them to or take them to a warming shelter, or in some cases even get them a night's stay at a lodging area. So you know, we got these folks out there that are ready to position at 2 a.m. in the morning, you know, and that's some of the things that the ordinary person doesn't see day to day. And do want to send a big shout out to all those employees that are working in the background. And that would conclude my county manager report. Chair.
Thank you, Alan. We will now go into board comments. And the comments tonight will be your plan, immediate needs, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan. Before we start that, if you still have your closed session minutes from January 9th, you would turn those, make sure the Deidre and the clerk of the board gets those. You can just leave them in your packet here. And she'll take those up. So they don't get misplaced. Miss Harley?
Yes.
I see you study your paper over there, so
I'm always.
would you like to be the first one to go or the next to last one to go?
No matter.
Okay, you lead us off, young lady.
All right, so my first year plans, figure out what to do about all of our revenue loss, and Just trying to get by and not have to lay off any of our county employees. So that would be one of my biggest ones. Get prepared for fire mitigation with the amount of vegetation debris on the ground. I'm very worried. We've had numerous structure fires, just this week. And so going into the spring, that does give me some great concern. And this board has been proactive in taking those steps as far as doing the resolution. There's been some conversations about getting our ranger position filled. So hopefully, that'll be a sooner than later fix. Hopefully it won't even be a year from now. Working towards Bowman and figuring out, having this board sit down and discuss what we think needs to go over there and kind of seeing the best use of space. And personally, I would like to see Extension get over there, because they're not ADA compliant at all in any way, shape, or form in their current building, so that one is at the top of my list. But making sure that we don't just let Bowman sit by the wayside and fall to pieces. And then basically just completing all of our current projects, because we do have so many. We've got our rec center, the sheriff's office, now we're gonna be long-term planning for transportation. And then on top of just sustaining, all of the maintenance for our buildings and all of that. So I know that was kind of a lot for the first year. But then in my 3-year, I figure we'll still be at the Bowman transition, because I foresee that taking, 2 to 3 years to get done. And then also transportation is there. And then in that time frame, the 1 to 3 years, still working for long-term sustainability. And trying to figure out what our needs are. I probably won't be on the board at that time after the 3-year mark, but just making sure between now and the time I go to the board that we set the next commission board up for long-term sustainability. And so 5 years, I didn't pick any because I won't be here. So I'll be out there. So
Mr. Lee.
For, immediate needs or urgent needs,
Yes.
in my mind, it's certainly being sure about taking care of our citizens after the storm. And I think that also includes looking into ways to help our local businesses. We currently, and I think that's going to probably come through EDC. And we currently don't have an EDC director, so I'm gonna, hopefully at our first meeting, that'll be discussed at least about next steps toward filling that position. I think that both individuals and businesses after the storm is definitely my number one concern. Revenue loss and how to balance that. Mine and Dale's first budget, I'm concerned about that, but, I am more concerned about, as much as anything, seeing people get back to normal, our community back to normal. There's not a person in here that hadn't heard a complaint at some time about debris removal and the way the town and the counties look, the way the towns and the county look. But certainly, after that, I think that part of that process for improving the county economically is, I think we need to, one of the biggest complaints that I get on a pretty regular basis is the lack of a level 3 building inspector except at certain times during the day. And I think it's either early or late or both, but during the day, that's a void that we have. And I'm hearing that from local industries, and I think we need to take a look at that. I'm not for spending money, but I don't know how else we dig out of this without getting the right people in the right places to help us dig out of this. I would say that the third thing that I have for immediate need is clearly, in my mind, supporting our school system. I hope that I didn't give the impression I don't by not agreeing to a 5-year or slowing down on a 5-year commitment. But our kids I believe our kids are our future, just like everyone is. I think that, accountability at each level with the county, at the, school level, and at the town levels are critical over the next 2 or 3 years perception is everything. Whether it's fair or not, the public perception that people have of government is a true reality in their minds. And so I think that we have a responsibility to be frugal where possible. And as far as that was my main thing was what can I bring in needs for the first year or first 2 years. I didn't go past that yet.
Okay. You got a lot on your list. Mr. Blevins, sir.
As I will reiterate what Lee has said about us, we're gonna be going through a lot of first year items this year, and we're gonna need the guidance of our older board members, our more seasoned ones, let me say that. Instead of calling you old.
Yes, things are that.
Yeah, but I hope, for my first year, I set a goal for my first year, I hope that we do have some solid opioid appointments in place. I will drag out, I've gotten all this stuff that everybody's given me through emails, what Linda has given me. I have a notebook now that thick, just on opioid. And it's a lot of reading and a lot to take in. I also am hoping, which we've already done part of it with the feasibility study for the transportation. I hope we can get that in place in the first year and have plans for that. Along with getting our tax office and our temporary transportation in the first year back in their offices where they can function for our citizens. Also, what has been on my mind since December for the first year is this forest fire plan. It really bothers me. I hope we can get something started. Because if we have a dry summer this year, we're gonna be in trouble. And we've got to have some kind of plan in action. And of course, the budget process, as you all know, the budget process this year is going to be tough. It's going to be a hard road to travel for us with lots of work. And my hopes are that we can meet all of the needs of our citizens, that we can continue to offer the things that we have offered them in the past. 3-year plan, I'm hoping. I'll listen to the predictions from Alan, what he tells us that hopefully we can be in the 3-year plan, hopefully moving into the new Bowman facility. Getting things started there. Hopefully in 3 years, we can see some buildings started, or almost hopefully, I would love to see it completed on the new transportation facility. And at least getting it started, have a plan for it, a place for it, to see that going. 5-year plan. There's one thing that I have really pondered on, and I'm gonna learn a lot, I'm sure, with being on the High Country Rural Planning and Transportation Advisory Committee. 226 is a big need right now, from Gillespie Gap all the way over to here. And I know some of it, once things settle down with the floods, it's during, in the afternoons, if you've ever gone past Mitchell High School, Mitchell Elementary Middle, the traffic that is lined up, the dump trucks that are moving in and out, the school buses coming in and out. 226 is outgrown, has outgrown itself right now. You come down this way and the traffic, you go out down Burleson Hill. Sometimes I sit in my school bus at Carter's Ridge to turn in for 7 or 8 minutes unless some nice citizen decides to blink their lights and let me pull out in front of them. Just to get turned off to take kids home on Carter's Ridge Road. It's nothing but a line of traffic as far as you can see. So that's one of my 5-year plans, to see something done with 226. Also, and I'm going to combine and correlate all 3 levels, once again, with, our schools. I will agree with Lee Ellis on that. Our children are our futures. And, if we give them a stable education at an early age, get them interested in Mitchell County, our young people will set up roots here. I'm fortunate, I have 2 children that are setting up roots here right now, 2 grown young men. One is a teacher at Mitchell Elementary and Mitchell Middle, and the other one is working for an accounting firm now. And their long-term goal is to live in Mitchell County, have a family in Mitchell County, and that's what we need. So I want those to be all 3 levels, just to, not to take away from our other agencies or our other needs that we have in our county, but I want to keep our schools strong in this county. Because right now we are on the right track. We have the facilities, we have, hopefully through grants with the Board of Education, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, lots of grant money in the wing, hopefully coming in for Gooch School, Greenlee, Mitchell High School.
We're
Working on that, so we're on the right track. I think that's all I've got.
Mr. Pitt, like good stuff.
It is one.
I had written down for immediate needs, I just want to get the county back to normal operations, and by normal operations, I think we've got a year, it's January. It'll be July before we know it, but I think we made a good step tonight in getting this building back, to normal, operation. Getting these transportation folks in a place, I think we gotta prioritize getting our county back in what would I call normal, I guess, because, it affects people, and we have to be cognizant of, we're asking people to, not only are we putting them in a weird spot down here sitting in this little room, but we're asking them to do, their job is probably completely different than it was 6 months ago. So, I want us to be very cognizant of their needs and what people's having to deal with. For me, it's just getting back to normal in this first year. And then I think Harley touched on it, but I think this budget process is going to be a pretty critical one. For me, I really want to see us, I really want to challenge every department to look at how, I always put a goal for myself of 10% down from the previous year. I've not hit that goal yet, let me say that. But if we don't start with that kind of goal, we'll never, it's the citizens' money that we're in charge of. And so I think as a director of a department, you really have to truly look at what your needs are and challenge yourself to say, hey, this is not just free money, it's taxpayer dollars. We've got to push ourselves to lower that budget. And it's hard. I mean, my own work, every year we put together a budget. Typically it gets tasks, so, we work to find a common ground to not lose things. So I think we've really got to challenge folks this year to look at their budgets. For the 3-year goal, for me, I want to get all of our construction projects complete. Law enforcement, rec center, Bowman. I think we've got to prioritize to make sure. I know the rec center and the law enforcement, we're moving at a really good pace in Bowman. I think we've got some ideas, but I don't really know if we've got a full concrete plan of what that looks like. And I think we've got to make sure we get that took care of. And going through what the folks in this county have to go through, I don't know, I struggle with saying this, but I think nobody in this county has any problem getting in their car, driving to Johnson City and going out to eat or buy groceries, and we're paying 9.5% sales tax over there. I truly think we need to come up with a marketing plan. And this is, I know this is very, not popular, but if people would, if we go about it in the right way, you know, a sales tax referendum to change what the sales tax is here. Like I say, we'll drive to Tennessee every weekend to go eat, to go shop and pay that 9%, 9.5% with no issues. We could do something like that here and share that burden of taxation with every person that comes through Mitchell County, and, you know, take some of the burden off the citizens. And honestly, the folks wouldn't probably not notice that they even, it come, I mean, they would notice, but not.
But there's a lot of stuff that's not applied to, like your medicines, food, candy's not considered food, but there's a whole list. I haven't looked at it
And
probably in years.
that's a very good point. It's not every item. So, you know, I don't know. I feel like there's an opportunity there that could save the county a lot of, anytime you say tax, the word tax, you put this on a bill, it immediately gets shot down because it's got tax beside it, because nobody wants, oh, I don't want to pay more taxes. I don't either. But I think if we put together our heads and put a good marketing campaign together, it's an opportunity to get the county some money back and reduce the taxes for some of the citizens. The other thing I've got on my 3-year plan that I think's become even more evident than anything to me is the fact that we've got to get a emergency management command center and get a place for those guys to operate and not be kind of makeshift. We need them a place to, this is where you go, this is who's got the stuff, this is I mean, you know, I feel like that's a true need for us currently. So I know it's not a year kind of plan, but in 3 years, I think we can come up with something. And I've got some ideas I won't share here because they're not popular, but I also think that I've got some ideas of how we can do this. And then of course Sheila's gone, but I do think new transportation centers, if we can do that in a 3-year time span, at least if we can get our money, get the study done, get the, you know, design, get started moving towards getting that moving, that would be amazing. And then 5-year plan, I think we truly as a county have got to look at an infrastructure rehab for, you know, you've got the town of Spruce Pine, you got the town of Bakersville, both water systems completely decimated during this storm. Wastewater plants, both, you know, and I know they're working to get a lot of money to put that stuff back, but I mean, I think we as a county have to be cognizant of where all that feeds and be willing to help get this done. I mean, this water goes all the way out to Mitchell High, you know, and so it's not just the folks of Spruce Pine that it's affecting, it's touching every kid in the county. And if you ain't got water, we saw what happened you know, just recently. So, you know, I think as a county, we have to really work with our towns and see what they need and say, hey, you know, guys, they need to be transparent with us to say, this is what we've got and this is where we're going. But I think, you know, we have to have a plan to build this aging infrastructure back so that, you know, 40 years from now, somebody else can worry about it again. That's all I got. Sorry, didn't mean to get on the long script there. I'll leave it in the end. Thank you. You good, Steve? I'm good.
All right. Thank you, board, for doing this. Before I start mine, I want to say to the citizens of Mitchell County, you have a very dedicated board of commissioners citizens, in my opinion, that's going to put their nose to the grindstone and their hands to the plow to make this happen. I'm a very impatient individual. If some of you didn't know that, I want everything to be completed quicker than normal. So some of my 3-year plan might fall into a 2-year plan, and my 5-year plan might fall into a 3-year plan. immediate need, I think with the situation that we're in with our buildings, housing, certain things of that, we desperately need to look for a level 3 building inspector. Speed the process up. I think we've learned a lot from this storm. And I think, the next one, and I don't know if this is a proper terminology, Alan and John or whoever, but I think we need to look at and revise our EM disaster plan. Look at the older, make changes where needed. And we need to have in that plan a book like this that you can flip for every situation that this county could possibly go through. I think we need to look at our county and our personnel needs. And how we're gonna meet those needs. I think we need to have employees, if possible, that are multitask. Have people that are trained that can step in if somebody's out sick. Or if somebody retires. And one thing I would like to see us do, and I think the only way that Mitchell County is going to recover, and I believe we're going to recover. I think the towns and the county, boards of town and commission board, have a joint meeting at least every quarter or twice a year to brainstorm. What do you need? How can we help? We need to work together. And then going along with that, I'd like to see our towns, county, EDC, chamber, TDA, Main Street and BAM to meet one time a year, preferably in January, come up with a strategic plan and follow that plan out. What's happening every week, every month within this county, whether it's in Poplar, whether it's in North Switzerland, whether it's in Batesville, whether it's in Spruce Valley. It really doesn't matter which part of the community it's in, as long as we're all working together. So that's my immediate needs. First year plan, finish and open the new rec project and the ball fields. I think that can be very easily accomplished. This is gonna be easy because we voted on this, now find transportation, a new site, and find grant money to make this happen. Concerning Bowling Middle School, have a plan and a design for this property. So we can be ready to roll. My next one is to work with EDC and towns to develop workforce and high-end housing. Okay, that's something that this discussion sort of went away right before the storm hit. You know, we're in desperate need of housing. Here in Mitchell County, we need to look to try to find investors to buy into this. And also see if there's any possible grants out there to make this happen. We had in our county, in our towns, beautiful parks. Those parks have been destroyed. Those parks were used on a regular basis. And, you know, not just our folks, but from out of town folks. You know, whether they're down there walking, whether they're down there fishing, whether they're down there having a picnic. I think the county needs to be involved with the towns to restore all of their parks. Next one is work with EDC, Mayland, town, high school to train and equip a workforce. Also recruit small business and light industry. Because small business is going to be the heartbeat of our community, guys. And we've come a long way with this one. We need to continue to do this, Alan English. Work alongside with our Board of Education. Everybody's on the same page. Because I think it's been mentioned several times here, these kids are our future. They will be the ones that will be working in this county and running this county. So we must make sure that we give them the best possible education. Okay, Alan, this is gonna throw a curveball at you.
I got my notes ready.
Oh, well, before I go there, I'll go ahead and cut my own throat. With this one, you know, the state that our county's in, and we're trying to clean it up, with the process of cleaning it up, and I know this is not gonna be popular subject when it comes out of my mouth, folks, but I think we seriously need to look at corridor zoning along all of our main entrances. Because if your entrances coming into your county look bad, and 226 is a nightmare. 1981 into Avery County is a nightmare. Then we're not gonna get people to come in to our communities. If you have a business, they're not gonna come here and shop with you because they're gonna turn around and leave. And like I said, I know this is not a popular, you talk about zoning. Then it's a major issue. And I think corridor zoning is a little bit different. Along those lines, and if it ever comes to that discussion, I would rely on the attorney greatly for guidance. Now I'll get to my third year. My third year plan is bone finished and ready to move in. I'd like to see that done in year two.
Okay. I got you.
I live. And I think we're gonna take care of this with a new state-of-the-art transportation site and building. Because I think it was evident on the presentation that Sheila made, how far we've come and what the need is there to provide this service to our citizens. And my fifth year plan, and I think this one will happen, is high-speed internet to every community and every citizen in Mitchell County. We've missed a lot of school. We have tablets to do remote learning with. Our kids don't have internet access that they need to do the work. And they're having to do paperwork. If they had that tablet internet, then they could talk back and forth to the teacher instead of asking, oh, Dad, here how to do this, and I can get you the right answer, but I can't do it in that formula. If I don't do it the right formula, it's wrong. And a complete restoration for our communities, our town, our county. I want to see us out of this storm, come back better, stronger, and have a brand new normal for our people. So we have the opportunity to build back better and stronger than we were. But I think, guys, it's going to take a joint effort with everybody that's here. Not just here, but both towns are going to have to buy into this. And then our citizens are going to have to buy into this because it's, I've said this many times, it's a slow process, but some of this cannot be slow. If we don't get our businesses open back up and our business districts by this May, we're going to be struggling. So let's push and let's push hard. Anybody that's in politics at a higher level than you are, burn their ears up every time you get, don't let up on them, harass them. And say, look, you're gonna hear this out of my mouth every time I talk to you because we've got to have this, we've got to have it now, we can't wait. Okay, so I'm done. Talk long enough.
I had one thing.
Okay,
Chair. So, today earlier, and it seems like everything here lately has been coming in and saying do it yesterday because it comes in quick. The aide to the incoming representative Chuck Edwards on the federal side of the coin called me up and he said, they're looking since the storm hit to do some federal formative projects in your county. Could you give me a list of 3 non-FEMA funded, because we get a lot of FEMA stuff coming through here, of formative projects? Let me give you an example. One of them would be redoing Highway 226 into Marion to where we had a better connectivity, maybe rerouting the entire road. So we're talking
speed.
the 20. Yes,
That's a great
so
idea.
that could be an example of one. Another one might be saying, you got infrastructure at Ledger and infrastructure at Bakersville, making an infrastructure connection between Ledger in Bakersville of water sewer to have you a more solid, they're wanting those type of projects. So the homework for this board would be, I've got to meet at 11 a.m. on Thursday with Tommy Lauder, Chuck Edwards aide. And he said, could you give me your top three? So y'all shoot me an email, call me, tell me your top three. If you know them now, I mean, that's great, but if not, email me your top three formative. Change the county kind of things. If you had 50 million, 75 million to redo a road or redo infrastructure to redo, what would be your biggest bang for your buck from federal money? And, you know, I'm early on, they're new in this. We got a new administration. We have a storm stance. They're wanting to, well, we'll see. 3 years, 4 years from now, they're wanting to help us out. So,
Let me ask you that. Could some of that money be used to help local business get reestablished?
I don't know if they have that in mind,
Okay.
because he gave me the example of 226 as one.
Okay.
So I think he wants to see infrastructure funded scope of work projects. So I could put that down, and if, you know, if
Well, I was
that's
just
what you
asking.
say, I'll run it by them and see.
I mean, Dale's already mentioned 226.
Because a lot of them could bring the business in, you know, and bring some of the things in that build the revenue out and retain our youth. So you said your long-term goal is you want to retain youth and not to leave the county, you don't want the talent drain. Waterways to do that. Well, one of them is trying to build the economic engine in the county to where a young person could come here and make 80, 90, 100,000 a year with a tech job or something that's career ready.
And let me ask you two more things along this line, and we've talked about them tonight, and we've identified them as a need. $10 million for transportation, 25 million for the moment. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals. I mean, we've talked about it, we realize that's a need. Transportation is the biggest need right now. With finding them a facility, and I understand that we've got a 2-year or 3-year, you know, possibly looking at 3 years to have all this done. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals that I'm thinking about. I think infrastructure is huge. With water and sewer connecting Bakersville to Spruce Pine, that gives you an opportunity for development. And another way we need to look at development is 19E to the Yancey County line with water and sewer possibility, especially water. You know, if you've got water, you can go on septic. You necessarily don't need to be with and septic system. But most of the land that I've seen that could be commercial land or developed land for housing is on that 19E corridor. Really. That's just me thinking, you can, and whatever you decide, I'm good.
Well,
Just that's just curveballs.
I will probably run y'all a list by when you give me, every one of y'all give me your top 3 to 5. If you give me your top 3 to 5 formative projects that federal funds might go for, dream big, send them to me. I'll send them out to y'all, and then Thursday morning at 11, I'll bring our top 3 out. If I see some trends among everybody. But these have all been good, and I know there's a lot in what y'all said on there, so just shoot me an email, give me a call before Thursday.
Anything else, guys, before we move on? Okay, we do have need to go into closed session tonight. That will lie under 143-318-11. 3, consult with an attorney, and 6, personnel. Do I have a motion that we go into closed session? Steve, second, okay. Will stay, Alan will stay, of course, Steve will stay.